So Ryan Day at Ohio State just spent, I don't know what the number is actually going to be. What is the report, like $35 million on this signing class of Chip Kelly?
Yeah, it's a ton.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's the report, right? $35 million. I mean, you got Caleb Downs from Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, I heard it was 30, but
yeah,
I mean,
whatever it is. Quinshon Judkins from Ole Miss goes and hires a Big Ten head coach to be a Big Ten offensive coordinator. If Steve Sarkisian wanted to do that at Texas, if Sark looks across the landscape and says, I need $20 million worth of recruits and I need to hire a stud coordinator, the perception is Texas boosters are saying, where do we send the check? Is that the actual? Is that real life?
Yeah, that's real life.
He's got all the money he wants.
He's got all the money he wants. And he, like in this most recent, the commitment of DeCorian Moore, the number one receiver in the 2025 class who just committed. He's a Texas kid who just committed to Oregon. And Josiah Sharma, the defensive tackle, another kid from Texas who was a Texas lean the entire way. And then right before their announcements, some wheeling and dealing, and they commit to Oregon. Now, it's not over till it's signed, but I was told, that Sark was like, we're good. So he has said we're not going to bring in kids who make it all about NIL. The tricky thing is these kids' advisors, agents, they're all about the dollar. They don't really care about, you're going to have these network connections for the rest of your life. If you live in the state of Texas, you'll be connected to Longhorns. They'll look out for you, blah, blah, blah. And Sark is they were in on the Dominic Williams defensive tackle from TCU, who apparently got $1.5 million to go to TCU or to go to Oklahoma, and Sark was like, "We're not doing that." So
he's got all the money he wants. He's just not willing to spend it right now.
Right.
Interesting.
He's very, very much about this culture.
Yeah.
And he wants to protect the culture, and
so he's not Dabo level in this, but he's closer to Dabo than he is Ryan Day and Dan Lanning and people like that.
Or what Jimbo was at Texas A&M.
Yeah.
Got to respect that, though.
I do respect it.
If I'm a Texas fan, I don't know how much I like it.
Yeah.
But
I respect the concept of it. I don't know how you –
We'll see how it works.
Well, I mean, we're watching that with Dabo too.
Right. Dabo's the extreme.
Well, he's the extreme, but it sounds like Sark's closer to him than he is some of these other guys.
Right. I mean, Texas brought in 11 transfers. One of them's already gone, Kendrick Blackshire, who came in and left after spring. Now he's at UTSA. So 10 transfers, and the most he had brought in before that was 6. So, and 3 defensive tackles. That's the position they kind of got messed up by the Bo Davis defection to LSU. Some of the kids who signed with Bo Davis ended up leaving the class, and they kind of scrambled.
Yeah.
And so they went and got the 2 kids from Arizona, Bill Norton and Tia Savea, and then Jermaine Lole from Louisville. And those guys are one-year guys. So they're off in their defensive tackle recruiting. They only took 1 kid a year ago. They don't, they got 2 after the 1 kid, DeAndre Robinson, reneged on his signature and went to Florida. So they got to get that thing fixed, because we all know you got to have a quarterback and you got to have interior defensive linemen in the SEC. I mean, Georgia won national championships with Devontae Wyatt, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter. Alabama won national championships with, insert defensive tackles here. And, Clemson with Christian Wilkins and Dexter Lawrence. I mean, they won both of their national championships at Clemson with those guys. And when they left, it drops. So I'm always looking at those interior defensive linemen. And last year, Texas had 2 great ones in Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy, and they developed in the program. They got to make sure that the next wave is developing like those guys, because it made a huge difference.
Yeah.
So I'm a big Quinn Ewers fan, And, we recently did best returning starting quarterbacks in the SEC, and I had Carson Beck at number 1, and I think you were with me. Did you have yours too?
Yeah, I did have yours too.
Yeah, I had yours too. With all that said.
And now Dylan Gabriel's the Heisman favorite.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? And Oklahoma's able to say, we don't want you. Go ahead and leave. Heisman favorite. We'll take Jackson Arnold.
Gulp.
Is it possible, though, next year, and I'm jumping ahead, that Arch Manning could be a major disappointment / bust? I've never really seen him play. So
I don't think so, because you all saw how Sark worked with the quarterbacks at Alabama when it went from, Jalen to Tua to Mac Jones to Bryce. Alabama averaged, 47 points per game in 2020? So I think Sarkisian has done a really good job, and his history is fantastic with quarterbacks. He had Carson Palmer, Matt Leinart, and Matt Castle all in the same quarterback room. He goes with Leinart over Castle. Castle never starts a game at USC, ends up playing 14 years in the NFL. So I think his pedigree with quarterbacks is why he's getting them. Now, we'll figure out. Texas fans are worried about, is KJ Lacey the right guy, in the 2025 class, and is Auburn messing with him, whatever. But as of right now, Quinn Ewers to Arch Manning, I think Texas fans feel good, and they feel like they got one of the best quarterback rooms in the country.
Our SEC coverage brought to you by our friends at MyBookie, mybookie.ag. Promo code next round, coverage all week from Dallas, both on the live show and our social media network, brought to you by our friends at MyBookie. We're in the league. Texas is now. We've been waiting since, 2021 for this to happen with the announcement. And now we've got the schedule. What do you think the one road trip that Texas fans are waiting to take on this year's schedule? They're dying to go to this place. And then the one that there's not on the schedule this year, their second one that they're waiting. Because you got to take Alabama off the board. They've done that now.
Right. So, College Station is always.
Right. So they're ready to get back in that.
It's mayhem. They know it's going to be mayhem. They know they need to be as many as they can in Kyle Field because there's so much extra vitriol for that game.
And I was impressed at how many Texas fans got into Bryant-Denny last year.
Right.
There was a ton in really good seats. In that rivalry, is Texas able to buy their way into Kyle Field usually?
It's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough because A&M fans are really adamant about not selling tickets to Texas fans. So that's a monster. I think they really wanted to go to LSU in 2020. That was supposed to be the return trip after Joe Burrow and
that's right.
And Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase came in that great shootout, beat them by 7.
Wasn't there a dropped touchdown, like really easy? Who was the quarterback back then?
Sam Ehlinger.
Okay, Ehlinger. Yeah, I thought there was like a drop down on the goal line.
I thought he didn't pick up a first. I thought if they got a first down, the game's over.
Keontae Ingram,
right?
Dropped it, running back.
Yeah.
They had 3rd and 17.
That's when they exploded.
That was it.
Yeah, LSU completely exploded after that game.
Yeah.
Like in a good way for them.
Yeah, and Joseph Osai is this close to getting Burrow, but Burrow gets it out. Justin Jefferson, scores on 3rd and 17.
Yeah.
And
what a game.
That was the game because it was a 7-point game. At that point, if Texas gets off the field and they can go down and tie it and go into overtime or whatever, or go for 2.
Yeah.
Who knows? Because Ehlinger was on fire that game.
Yeah. You talked about the atmosphere. I remember seeing you in the press box of that Texas-Alabama game, and I told you, get ready. This is not even the best you're going to get in the league. And it was a big atmosphere that night. You'll get full dose LSU. You'll be like, okay, this is the SEC.
Yeah.
And the good thing is you'll get that at 8-9 places. It's that good.
They got it at Arkansas in 21.
Did they? Yeah.
They got ambushed.
Yeah.
So they know now that Arkansas is waiting for them this year. Fans want to go to LSU. They want to go to the Swamp. They want to go to Athens.
Yeah.
And
you tell them put Auburn on that list because it's unique. It is a great atmosphere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never been to Auburn.
Yeah, you'll love it.
Yeah, you'll like it.
You will love it.
In Tennessee, I've never been to Tennessee.
Phenomenal. Especially if you catch a night game at Neyland. Yeah.
Oh.
Hey, not to get too far out there, but of all these crazy stories that you've covered, where did the Schlossnagle going from A&M to Texas, where does that rank in Texas history? Because I don't know, I can't remember anything like it, especially the way it went down.
I said when it happened, I wrote this, that now when you talk about Texas and Texas A&M, you got to talk about, the fact that they each talk about each other in their fight songs. The first bonfire at A&M in 1907, the first Hex Rally at Texas in 1941, and Jim Schlossnagle leaving A&M 12 hours after playing for a national championship in baseball to take over the Longhorns baseball program. And, Chris Del Conte, people forget he went to Texas Tech and hired Chris Beard, another huge in-state, more so for Texas Tech, than Texas, but that was a huge in-state rivalry, and he took their basketball coach. So Del Conte's been fearless in his hiring.
Boy, has he. Chip Brown is with us, horns247.com, part of 24/7 at Chip Brown 247, here with us as our coverage continues, presented by mybookie.ag. So that leads to, a lot of people talk about A&M's pissed about all the way this is going down, that Texas is coming to the league, and A&M might be interested in the Big Ten. The Big Ten might be interested in A&M. Do you think there is any validity to that?
John Sharp, the chancellor at A&M, is the one who's been driving everything behind the scenes. He's the one who gave Jimbo that plaque and said, we'll let you fill in the year of the national championship.
Still empty, by the way.
Right, and he's announced his retirement effective June of next year. Without him running everything, because he's had that Board of Regents under his thumb to do whatever basically he ordered them to do, I don't know who, they've had a revolving door at president because Sharp has been basically the president.
Right.
So they have a failure of alignment in leadership right now that leads me to believe they don't have the ducks in a row to go to the Big Ten right now. But, you never know. I mean, they've been really, really there's a reason that they were left out of the conversation until, the 11th hour, and then tried to leak the information to try to, rally support to keep Texas and Oklahoma out of the SEC. I mean, that's the story that's not been told, is that Greg Sankey or whoever was able to kind of keep that information from A&M until it was the 11th hour.
That was one of the most remarkable things, because you were right on the edge of all the previous expansion. When it looked like Texas was going to the Pac-12 and they decided not to. The fact, and we talked about it, it was SEC Media Days 2021 when that story broke. We were talking last night about how Greg Sankey was on set with us, and everybody knew the story, and he couldn't confirm it yet, and we were trying to, pull it out of him. But that story stayed undercover right up until the 12th hour, until A&M leaked it, which is absolutely remarkable. That Texas and Oklahoma could move from the Big 12 to the SEC, and almost nobody knew until the last minute.
And the Texas leadership, Kevin Eltife, really, the chairman of the Regents Board, who's a former Texas senator, he knew how it leaked in 2010, and he made sure that it stayed between him and Jay Hartzell and Chris Del Conte and the law firm that they used as the third-party intermediary with OU. And I give them a ton of credit because they kept that thing in a circle about as big as a tennis ball can. And so, when John Sharp leaks it to the Houston Chronicle, I'm like, oh, God, this is real because –
So you had caught wind of it, but you just couldn't report it because you couldn't get it confirmed?
Right. Well, honestly, I was not aware of that one coming. I mean, that's how good it was.
That's how out of left field it was. Yeah.
And I remember talking to Eltife afterward, and I'm like, how on earth did you do that? And he's like, we learned from our mistakes. I watched this happen in 2010, and we knew we had to, keep it, between basically the three of us and the law firm. And then once they knew that there was some, possibility of it working, that there was some possibility of them getting voted into the SEC, then they took it to the other regions. Like, they didn't even tell the other regions.
It was almost vote time by the
Right.
Yeah. That's crazy.
I mean, it was.
So if it hadn't leaked in 2010, you'd think they would have gone to the Pac-12 back then? And was it a leak that kept them from getting Saban in 2012?
Yeah, because, we do have a different college football world if they go to the Pac-12.
Yeah.
Right, for sure. I think the president at the time, Bill Powers, who was a Cal graduate, was enamored with the idea of rubbing shoulders with Cal and Stanford, and he wanted it to happen.
What an absurd statement that
It really
He
is.
could have waited a few years and did it in the ACC.
I know. I mean, think about that. And then Oklahoma is so pissed that Texas kind of ends up backing out of the Pac-12 deal, that the OU president at the time, Bowen, he's like, we're going to go to the Pac without Texas. And they go to the Pac and say, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State will come to the Pac. And that's after Texas had gotten the Longhorn Network, and the Pac said no. Think about that.
I want a slap in the face.
So they, after they don't get the 6 schools from the Big 12, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State were like, we'll go. And the Pac said no.
I mean, boy, did they get saved. I mean, Oklahoma's a good brand, but imagine, that Pac-12 fell apart.
But it wouldn't have.
With Oklahoma, you don't think it would have?
No, because Oklahoma and Texas wouldn't be coming to the SEC.
Yeah,
so.
Well, but if Texas was staying in the Big 12, I don't know. It's a great question.
Yeah. I believe Texas would have gone to the Big Ten eventually, and Oklahoma and all of them would have gone to the Pac-12.
Has Oklahoma sold their soul, their football soul, for money? And the way the reason I bring this up is it's impossible to say no to the SEC, but if they just would have stayed back in the Big 12, they should have been able to dominate that conference. And now with the 12-team playoff automatic qualifier, you would think, every other year they're going to a college football playoff. And I have zero expectation with Oklahoma this year with that schedule.
I don't know what's in store for the Big 12 when the next round of media rights comes, because the Big 12 timed their media rights to the Big 10. That's when we're going to know if there's any more movement in realignment, because that Big 10.
When is that timeline?
It's 30.
2030.
2030.
Be here before you know it.
And
It will be.
and that's when we should know what's going on in the ACC, the Big 10. Obviously, if the SEC wants someone from the ACC, they'll, do whatever they need to do to make that happen. But that's when we should know. And is there going to be any media rights money left for the Big 12? So from a competitive standpoint, yeah, Oklahoma would have done well to be in the Big 12. But the leadership went to the SEC because they knew all this change was coming. They knew revenue sharing was coming. They knew, NIL was already happening. They needed to get to the highest ground financially to make sure that they were on equal footing, competitively going forward.
For some reason, I don't trust Texas, and I don't trust. Y'all moved conferences a lot. I don't trust Texas A&M. They can move again. Do you? I've never seen anybody leave the SEC. I've only seen people join the SEC. Do you foresee anybody leaving the SEC ever?
I mean,
Like,
if we get to relegation, at some point, I think you're going to have the Big Ten and the SEC as they're going to be the premier leagues, or the premier league of college football, and they're going to determine who's in and who's out. And I should probably ask y'all, do you see them ever voting to put Vanderbilt in relegation or something?
I will tell you, I'll tell you a phrase I have heard many times from many people inside the SEC office, and that is the phrase founding member. and or charter member, either one of those, founding member or charter member, and you, oh, no, the SEC is not going to do that to a charter member. And Vandy is a charter member. Now, does that attitude last forever? I mean, as Greg Sankey retires and a new guy comes on, does he have that same attitude? I don't know, but I will say, for years in Birmingham, there has been a I don't even know the word I'm looking for, a unity among the Southeastern Conference and their charter members. Like, those guys have been given preference even above, the Arkansas and South Carolina when they come in and all those things. So
yeah, it wouldn't be 12, 14, and 16 without those 10 guys or 10 schools going,
then
we're going to let you in.
Then there's probably, 2 you can add in the Big Ten and 2 you can add in the SEC. Otherwise, it just gets too obstreperous in terms of trying to schedule it, and that's where we need a college football commissioner, Nick Saban, to come in. And these are the 36 schools we're going to have, and we're going to put geographic sense back into it. We're going to have divisions like the NFL so that USC and Washington and Oregon are back, playing with some geographic sense here.
Which would be like the smaller conferences, our divisions. Yeah. Like in the SEC could be the Atlantic or the ACC 8 schools there, the SEC or the Southeastern, and then the Southwestern.
Right.
Back to where we started.
Right.
Yeah, back to where we were.
And that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
And everything else is following the NFL's path, so why not that?
Okay.
You play everyone in your division, you play 2 teams from that division, every other,
Who has a better year one in the SEC? A&M in 2012 with Manziel, where I believe they were the second or third best team in college football, or Texas this year?
That A&M team was 10-2.
Yeah.
I know they were.
I think Texas will be 10-2.
Yeah. But I would say in a 12-team playoff, that A&M team would have made a lot of noise.
Oh, there's no doubt.
A lot of noise.
Because they were better at the end than they were at the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Remember, they beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa.
Right. Johnny Manziel was
a
incredible.
magician.
Yeah, he was.
Kind of like Vince Young for Texas, where it was just un-F-uppable,
Yeah.
I don't.
Un-F-uppable is really good. And who was their other loss? They lost to Florida and LSU?
Who was A&M's other loss?
I'll look it up. That's not important. Go ahead.
But I think Texas, I just can't predict them to go 11-1. I know some have. I think they're going to lose one of the Oklahoma, Georgia back-to-back. And then I could see them losing either to Michigan or A&M. So if they beat Michigan, they'll have a ton of momentum. I still think that if they beat OU, I think they lose to Georgia, and then maybe they see Georgia again.
That's what Nick Saban said today. He picked Georgia and Texas.
Yeah, I mean, I could see where Georgia beats them in Austin, and then they play again.
Do you believe the SEC championship game loser, that should not eliminate you from the playoffs, no matter what your record is? Like if you go into that game 10-2.
Yeah. So if we had a glut of 10-2 teams,
right,
and then now all of a sudden you've taken loss 3, nobody else has the third loss.
Right.
You can't let that happen.
That loss should not eliminate you from the playoffs.
I agree with that.
Right.
I don't think that should eliminate you.
Right.
You shouldn't get penalized for finishing top 2 in the SEC. I hope the committee looks at it that way.
Yep.
But that's why you have a committee, because if you've got a BCS-like poll, that third loss is going to drop you perhaps out of the top 11.
The bigger problem is if the third loss is a bad loss. Like if you're 10-2 LSU, you're sitting at home, you're already basically in. And then you're 10-2 Texas, and Georgia plays lights out, and you lose by 21.
That is a bad taste to leave in your mouth.
Yeah, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Like I think and I think we've talked about this, and I know we have. I think it's a better situation if you've got 2 losses to sit at home.
Right. And
you can't have a league with a championship game that's going to be that situation that you get penalized for playing in the game, though. I think Sankey and the Big Ten commissioner have to have it almost written in stone from the committee that you can't penalize, you can't drop the loser of our championship game out, or we'll stop doing it this way. We'll come up with a different scenario that may not include the Big 12, the ACC, and the Group of 5.
Yeah, you got to throw your weight around.
That's right.
I agree with that because I always thought get rid of the conference championship games because we're going to go to a 16-team playoff. I was like, get rid of one of the regular season games and the conference championship games and go to a 16-team playoff. And I know people are like, well, then how do you crown the conference champion? Well,
We get co-champions for years.
you get co-champions.
Does it really matter if you get
Nobody
a 16-team
cares
playoff?
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Co-champions
You just
for
do
years.
co-champions. Everybody gets to claim it.
There was a day. I mean, the SEC championship game was like my favorite weekend.
Oh, it's
over there.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
Was
But
that
that's
ever there for the Big 12 though? Was it ever that big of a deal?
Couple times.
A couple times. Yeah.
Texas A&M, Kansas State, right?
Texas A&M, Kansas State.
Unfortunately, one of the big ones was played outside at Arrowhead, I believe. I feel like that was
Missouri and Oklahoma.
it was a big, huge game
No.
with national championship implications.
Missouri, Kansas
And it
played
was
the week
freezing
before
cold.
Oh, okay.
in Arrowhead.
Yeah.
And the winner of that, which was Missouri, played Oklahoma.
And got drilled.
Yeah.
Yeah, that 2008 season, Texas should have, that tiebreaker where the coaches they voted Texas down because they didn't like Mac Brown, and they voted Stoops up because they like Stoops, and they won the tiebreaker by 0.003 of a point, and so they go to the Big 12 title game against Missouri, and that was the game Chase Daniel got caught eating his boogers on the sideline.
I don't remember that.
And OU paddled them, and then OU gets to play Florida for the national championship.
Before we play this game, I did want to ask you, because it's funny it comes up. So the first time we ever did a show together was Newport Beach, 2009, getting ready for the Rose Bowl, Alabama and Texas. Colt McCoy obviously goes out on that first possession. Do Texas fans stand behind if he doesn't go out, they win the game?
Well, the game plan was to throw it 40 times, and Colt McCoy was more accurate outside the pocket than he was in it. They felt like they could get to that Alabama secondary, and they didn't trust that game plan with Garrett Gilbert. Then they ultimately did have him throw it, and they got back
That's right.
to it was
I thought he was going to be good after watching him in the second half.
Within striking
Right.
distance.
It was a
yeah.
3-point game with 3 minutes and 42 seconds left.
Yep.
And Texas had a chance. And then, a strip sack and all hell in the last 3 minutes, and Alabama scores like 17 points.
Oh, yeah. And then punches one in late,
Right,
too, by the way.
to Pat. What, Eric Anders with the strip sack?
Yep.
MMA Eric.
MMA Eric Anders.
Yep. And
Yeah.
I remember Ingram got the Heisman winner and not scored, and he scored that touchdown late because I remember Dunaway and I standing on the sideline next to one another, and we're glancing over to try to find Muschamp.
Oh, and he was staring.
Oh,
a hole
Muschamp
in
was so
Saban.
pissed. Yeah.
Yeah, he was mad.
Well, I'll never forget, after the press conference, Mac Brown is coming off the dais, and Dennis Dodd says, well, Mac, we'll never know. And Mac looked at him with fire in his eyes and said, it wouldn't have been close.
No.
Like Mac was absolutely. That's
Mac
why.
believes it.
That's why he was so messed up after that game. Yeah. He never got over that game. He's still not over that game.
And did not want Saban
No,
to
I
be the
had-
next coach at Texas.
I had Texas fans behind me in that game, and they were bitching, and they were like, we had so many big leads this season. Why we didn't play Garrett Gilbert more where he would be prepared for this?
Yeah. And remember, Saban went for a fake punt
Early.
that failed miserably.
Well, I think that was miscommunication. There was no way they actually
And
went for
Blake Gideon, the guy who dropped the interception against Texas Tech in 2008, is the one who intercepted the fake punt pass, giving Texas great field position. Now, they weren't able to punch it in, so they were only up. They should have been up 14-0. They're only up 6-0. And so Alabama's defense was.
Okay, this is just for coming on with us.
Oh.
That is your participation
Do I need to open
prize.
this right now?
Yeah. We want to see what you get. And then we're going to have you, we're going to walk over here and play a little, a different version of beer pong where you
wow.
just have to make a shot.
Okay.
Let's see what you got here,
What
though.
will we get, Chip?
All right, Walgreens. Oh, Cracker Barrel.
Cracker Barrel.
Let's go. I love it.
Do you have
$25 Cracker Barrel. I know you can find one on the drive back to
Yeah.
Austin, right?
Yeah.
Cracker Barrels everywhere.
Yeah,
All right.
so you're 25, so you're on the board for a prize. Let's see how much you can add to that. We've done this today. So far, Ian Fitzsimmons of ESPN leads the way with an asterisk at $125.
Okay.
T-Bob Hebert walked
Woo.
out with 45.
So here's the way it's going to work, Chip. You're going to be behind this line.
Okay.
And you just need to make one of two. And you can use any of these. I would suggest going with the heavier hacky sack, but you see which one feels better for you. Yeah. So you get 2 shots.
I get 2 shots.
Chip was a 5-0 in tennis. I don't know if
right.
that carries over to this.
Now, Chip, I will say there is money in every bucket. So whatever you make, we don't know the denomination. So there's 20s, 50s, and 100s. Ian Fitzsimmons walked off with a $100 bill.
I will tell you, there's no money in the carpet.
Yeah. Hit a bucket.
So get wherever you want over here.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want to lose the cord? You got it?
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Oh. Now, I know you got to have good hands to be a really good tennis player, especially at the net, right?
Right.
Were you backhand? Was that forehand? What was
I
your?
was a serve and volley guy.
serve
Were
and
you?
volley? Yeah.
Yeah, you got soft hands. I can see while you're handling that hacky sack. On the rim of two of them.
Yes.
He leaves with only a $25 gift card.
Double rim shot.
I got some good news for you, though. You're in a drawing for a $250 gift card from our friends at Roback, roback.com, code TNR20 at checkout to save 20% on your first order.
Yeah.
You'll be in a drawing. We'll give that away at the end of the week, so you might get a $250 gift card out of this from Roback.
You could be a winner. I mean, take a look at fill that Roback shirt there. I mean,
Do you have any Roback? It's good stuff,
Oh,
man.
I need some Roback.
Yeah, and look, and the Roback pant.
oh, that's the
that's
best
good.
pan I own.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
$250.
Hoodies, too.
Yeah.
I got to
really
go
good.
steal that 100 from Fitzy.
Good luck. He's already spent that.
We've got about 6 minutes left in the show here as we broadcast live from the Omni in Dallas, SEC Media Days. Wednesday is Texas Day. Ironically, it is Alabama and Texas here on the same day at SEC Media Days. It's almost like the clash of the egos. I mean, one team that's coming to the SEC has the reputation of being egotistical, obnoxious fans, and then there's Alabama, who's always been portrayed by the other SEC schools as egotistical and obnoxious. And now you're both going to meet head-to-head on the same SEC Media Day.
I mean, and Nick Saban gets rebuffed from SEC Media Days because he didn't have his
We're going to need that credential, sir.
I mean, I just – how are you all doing without Nick Saban?
I mean,
well.
Kalen DeBoer right now got another 5-star guy yesterday. Taylor, where's his recruiting class ranked right now?
He's got 17.
That is
Number
number
one.
one. That is a one.
You see that? Where's he ranked? Auburn fan? Where's number one?
Yep.
Currently number one.
17 top 300 players. I mean, for that, it's a 20. Is that 25 or 26?
It is almost everyone. And I don't know where you stand on this. Almost everybody that looks at him says the guy can obviously coach.
Oh, yeah. What is he, 112 and 4
Yeah, I mean,
or
he's
something?
barely lost any games, and really, but and T-Bob mentioned this earlier. His record against the high-end opponents he's played is what I really look at. Like twice against Texas, 3 times against Stan Lanning at Oregon.
I almost think he baits coaches into going against what they know. And we go back to the semifinal last year against Sark in Texas. And you guys, Jonathan Brooks, I mean, not Jonathan Brooks, but they were actually
C.J. Baxter and Jaden Blue, they were gashing him on the ground.
Yeah.
And that's where Sark likes to get his quarterback into rhythm, passing early. And he should have thrown that script away and just kept gashing them because they adjusted. But initially, what Texas was literally running, was working. I think their first 6 running plays averaged 12.5 yards a carry.
Well, that's what Michigan did 2 weeks later, or a week later.
And Harbaugh
Michigan
never went away.
Yeah, they didn't go away from it.
No.
And that's I said going into that game that they were going to have to pound it and that they could. They have a good enough running game. And that's where I'm interested this year because Texas has the veteran offensive line. I think Jaden Blue and C.J. Baxter are 2 super talented backs. I think Blue will go pro after this season, and Texas has had the top running back drafted in each of the last 2 years. I think he could be the third. I think he's that good. Tashard Choice compares him to Jahmyr Gibbs.
Ooh.
This audience knows what Jahmyr Gibbs is about.
Yeah,
so
right.
my question is Sark going to be patient enough? We know he likes to run it at the end of games. Is he going to stay patient enough with the running game early and when it's working and not – constantly, try to think of how do I set up these passing plays for later in the game and
Sometimes
all that.
he's too smart for his own good.
Right. He's
Yeah.
really good at picking apart defenses. Everyone talks about what he did to Ohio State in 2020. I mean, what? First half was
Devontae Smith doesn't
ridiculous.
get injured.
500 receiving
Yeah,
yards.
whatever he wants.
Right. Yeah.
What is the interaction or the media accessibility with Sark? I mean, is he a well-liked guy?
Yeah. Yes. And he's hard not to like because of his story and the fact that it seems like he's got a really good sense. He's self-aware of where he's been and how to tell his story to his players now in this culture building that he does, these Culture Wednesdays, and him looking out for the culture and not just spending money willy-nilly on NIL. And he's made very few missteps since the 5-7 year one. I mean, he's rebuilt the trenches. He said, we're going to get bigger on the inside. We're going to get faster on the outside. He's done that. Their team speed is ridiculous. It does remind me a little bit of 2019 and 2020 at Alabama with all this receiver talent they have. Now, they got to mesh with Quinn Ewers, and it's got to show up in games like it did in Tuscaloosa last year with the deep balls to Worthy and A.D. Mitchell.
2 lucky throws.
But
Yeah, I mean, they were just sky
Great
shots.
catches.
and just
Yeah.
Jatavian
Great
Sanders.
catches,
Every Alabama fan was like, how the hell did that tight end get so open?
Hey, how much do Texas fans miss Tom Herman?
Oh, my God.
Was he just a
Zero.
dick?
Yes.
Zero. That's a zero.
He got that job and turned into a different person.
Yeah.
Like he got
That's
drunk
like somebody winning the
on
lottery,
power.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like even some of his former Houston staff told me the guy just totally went ego crazy, ego gone wild.
Well, Chip, man, thank you for being with us.
Chip.
MyBookie.ag bringing us our coverage from out here.
Code next round, mybookie.ag. All these games we're talking about, you can bet them right there. Mybookie.ag. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere. Mybookie.ag. Code next round. Mybookie.ag. Code next round to get that sign-on bonus.